Okay, so the law of demand, put this down here. So I don't know what number we're actually up to, like 12 or something, 11? I was close. And you don't really have to keep things numbered if you don't want to. I know some people like to do that. You should probably have everything ordered already in your notes. But we're going to start today with the law of demand. And the law of demand is just the idea that as the price of a good increases, the amount that we're going to want to buy is always going to fall. Okay? Let's get down here that we'll say as price, and I'm just going to use an arrow here, goes up, okay? And the correct terminology here is the quantity demanded, okay? So we'll put the quantity demanded is going to decrease. As the price of a good increases, the quantity demanded is going to decrease. And we should add the opposite scenario. As price decreases, the quantity demanded will increase. And that's what your table that you put down should illustrate. Okay? It should show us that law of demand. And that law of demand holds true for all things that we buy. Okay? Now, we might respond, greater or in greater ways or in smaller ways when price changes. Some things when price changes, it doesn't have a huge impact. It might only be a small impact on our demand. But then other things, a price change might have a huge impact on our demand for that good. Okay? But the law of demand still always holds true. Okay? As price changes, it influences the amount that we want to buy. The amount that we want to buy, we call that the quantity demanded. Okay? All right. Next thing, let's put down here graphing demand. This is probably 12. Now, we will spend a lot of time this semester graphing demand. Okay? The demand for all sorts of things. Today, we're talking about the demand for whatever good that you put on the top of that half sheet of paper. For me, it would have been Doritos. Okay? And so what we have to understand, though, is when we're graphing demand, okay, we're going to create what we call a demand curve. We're going to say the demand curve illustrates the law of demand. So that's really all we're doing. We're taking that concept, okay, that as price goes up, the quantity demanded goes down, and vice versa, and we're going to take that concept and we're going to put it on a graph, okay? And that's really what, graphing demand is all about, okay? So whenever we graph demand, our graph is going to look something like this. And we will always show the relationship between price and quantity. And we always put price on the vertical axis and quantity on the horizontal axis. Now, it's very important that we understand this. We'll be drawing a lot of graphs in this class, okay? A lot of demand curves, a lot of graphs that look like this. Labeling is super important, okay? Because when we label correctly, then we show that we understand we fully understand the concept that we're trying to illustrate. Okay, labeling is super important for the AP exam. When we get to talking about FRQ questions, graphing is a big part of that, and graphing things correctly and labeling things correctly will get you what I call free points, because I don't think labeling is that hard. It's just really memorizing what labels go with what graphs. But if we don't know how to label, then it's really, really easy to lose those easy points. Okay, so we got to make sure that, one, you remember the labels, and two, sometimes we draw graphs in here kind of quick, but when you're drawing them for a test or an exam, that you label things thoroughly. Okay, that's really, really important. All right, so we're gonna put on here. This is our demand curve will always slope down and to the right. Looks something like this, and we label that D for demand. And I am going to put our prices on here. So we started at 10 cents. And then we went to 25, then 50, and then $1. Okay? And we can plot, points on here if we'd like. So at 10 cents, I put down that I would buy 10 Doritos. 25 cents, I said 6 bags of Doritos. 50 cents was 3. And at $1, it was 2. Okay? So all I'm doing is I'm taking the info off of my demand schedule, and I am graphing that info. And that's how I get my demand curve. Okay? And I know that because we're graphing the law of demand, that my demand curve will always slope down and to the right. Always, always, always. If you're ever asked to graph a demand curve, you don't need a demand schedule to know what it's going to look like. It's always going to look just like that, regardless of what good you're talking about. Okay? Okay. Now, let's see here. Let me find an open space. One more concept that we have to understand is when we're looking at our demand curve, we have to understand the difference between, we'll say, change in quantity demanded and change in demand. Two different concepts, sound very, very similar, but there's a big difference between the two things. Change in quantity demanded and change in demand. Okay? So let's start with a change in quantity demanded. Change, and I'm going to abbreviate here, QD for quantity demanded equals, I'm going to run out of room. The change in quantity demanded happens when there is a price change, okay, and we move along our demand curve. Let's just put that down, and then we'll look at it on our graph. So let's say changes in price only, and we move along our curve. Price only, and we move, running huge right now, along curve. So if we look at our demand curve, okay, at every price, there is a point on our demand curve. That point represents a quantity demanded. So at 10 cents, the quantity demanded is 10 bags of Doritos for me. And when the price changes, we move from, one point to another point along our demand curve. We call that a change in quantity demanded because the price went up. Whenever there's a price change, you will move to a new point on that demand curve, and an economist would call that a change in quantity demanded. Okay? price changes from 10 cents to 25 cents, then the quantity demand changes from 10 bags of Doritos to 6 bags of Doritos. Okay? But that's different. I'm going to have to move down here on the bottom. A change in demand is different. So put change in demand. A change in demand happens when something other than price causes our demand curve to shift. Say something other than price causes the demand curve to shift. We're going to talk about those other things here in just a minute, okay? But what you have to understand is, let's say that, the price of, for me, it's Doritos. Let's say that the price of Doritos is set at 50 cents, okay? Well, I know that at 50 cents, I'm going to buy 3 bags of Doritos currently, okay? But if I come back in here tomorrow and the price of Doritos is still 50 cents, there could be other factors that could happen to me or could be happening around me that would cause me to buy more than 3 or less than 3 when the price is still 50 cents. Does that make sense? And those other factors are we call them the determinants or the shifters of the demand curve. So they would cause that whole demand curve to either shift right or to shift left. Okay? And we'll get back to that in just a minute. Questions at all so far? All right, I'm going to move to a new page. And let's label this demand determinants. Demand determinants. And what we mean by determinants, these are factors that cause a shift. Okay? Factors that cause a shift. We got 5 of them. Yeah, we'll number them. And the 5 of them spell the word tribe. Five determinants. They spell the word tribe. All of these determinants are factors that would cause you or I to buy more or buy less of whatever it is that you put down in your paper. Okay? First example, the T stands for tastes or preferences. We'll put down tastes or preferences. So the idea here is that, tastes, or maybe a better way to say taste is trends, right? Or individual preferences change. Maybe today, whatever you put in your paper was like the food that you had to have. Maybe tomorrow, there's something better that's out there, right? The price didn't necessarily change. The price was still, let's say, 50 cents, but you want something different, and so your demand is going to decrease because your tastes have changed. Instead of wanting Doritos, now you want to spend your money on Krispy Kreme donuts or something like that. Okay? Make sense? Tastes and preferences. Okay? Number 2, the R stands for related goods prices. Say related goods prices. Now remember, we're talking about factors that would change our demand for a good, and these factors have to be other than price. Okay? We're not talking about the price of Doritos changing. We're talking about the price of things that would either go with or go opposite of Doritos would be changing. And we call those goods in econ, we call them, I'm going to put 2 little arrows here, complements and substitutes. Complements and substitutes. Okay? So complements are things that go together. Coffee and cream go together, right? Cereal and milk go together. Doritos and Mountain Dew, of course, go together. Doesn't get any better than that, right? And so pancakes and syrup go together. Those are all complements. So if you put down pancakes as your food that you would want to buy, the price of pancakes stays the same, but if the price of syrup changes, those are complements. That change in the price of syrup is going to impact how many pancakes you are interested in buying. Does that make sense? If I know I have to have Mountain Dew with my Doritos, I'm willing to buy 3 bags of Doritos at 50 cents. But if the price of Mountain Dew goes up, now I can't afford as much Mountain Dew, so I won't want as many bags of Doritos. So my demand for Doritos would actually fall then. Okay? Substitutes are the exact opposite. They're things that you use in place of other things. So, maybe you put down that you want Pop-Tarts. Well, a fine substitute for a Pop-Tart would be a toaster strudel, right? And so if the price of toaster strudels changes, that might influence now your demand for Pop-Tarts. Okay? You guys like toaster strudels? Those are good. Better than Pop-Tarts, in my opinion. Pop-Tarts, though, you can eat them right out of the wrapper. You don't need to necessarily toast them. You're not eating toaster strudel without toasting it. All right. Anyway. Moving on. The third determinant is income. I said you found $20 in your pocket, right? That's all good. But what if you only found 10? That's going to impact how much you buy. What if you found 50? Oh, baby, now we're talking, right? Well, now you feel richer, and so you're willing to buy more stuff, okay? As your income changes, what you buy changes. But, curveball here. We don't respond the same way with all goods that we buy to a change in income. We have 2 different types of goods out there, and I'm going to put 2 arrows again. We have what we call normal goods, and we have inferior goods. A normal good is normal. It's a good, probably what you have down, that as you have more money, you buy more of it because you like it a lot. Okay? An inferior good is not normal. It's a good that you buy because it's cheap. Ramen noodles. Maybe you buy Pop-Tarts because, I don't even know if Pop-Tarts are cheaper, but maybe you buy the off-brand of Pop-Tart. How about that? The Meyer version or the Spartan version or whatever. But if you had more money, you would buy the real deal, right? And so, off-brands, things that we buy because they're a good deal, we would call those inferior goods. But here's the deal with inferior goods. As you have more money, you actually buy less of the inferior good, right? Because now you're like, oh, I got $50. I'm not going to buy that off-brand anymore. I'm going to buy the real thing, right? No one goes to the store, excited to buy Meyer O's, right? You want Oreos, but sometimes you walk out of there with Meyer O's because you realize how good of a deal it was. But if you had more money, you're getting Oreos, right? So that's the deal with inferior goods. Just know that we respond differently to things that we buy because they're cheap. More money, buy less of those things. Okay? All right. Number 4 would be the, we'll say buyers. It's like the number of buyers that are available, that influences our demand. And sometimes we also refer to this as population. We'll put that in parentheses. Population. As the population of an area changes, the demand changes with it. And number 5 is what we call expectations. And I'm just going to give you a couple of examples that go with this because this one gets to be a little bit tricky. A couple of good examples. One will say if you find out that something that you're eating is going to make you sick, okay? So we'll say if something is healthy or unhealthy. That's going to influence your buying regardless of price. Let's say you bought something from me, right? And then you talk to maybe a friend of yours that also bought the same thing from me, and you're on your way to school today, and your friend's like, sorry, I'm not going to make it to school today because I ate something yesterday that gave me, explosive diarrhea or something. And you're tracing it back to the food that you ate in this class was the cause of the problem. Okay. Now you're like, whoa, game changer. Mr. Kleinster could be giving that away for free and I'm still not going to eat it today, right? That's because you have an expectation that something is going to cause harm to you. The other example would be if there is a future price change. The price hasn't changed yet, but if I advertise next week, my products are going to be on sale. Well, that's going to influence how much you're going to buy now, right? You might say, well, I might wait. I might not buy as much now. I might wait and tomorrow. I'll buy next week when those goods are going to be on sale. Maybe then I'll just buy more. So when we know that price is going to change in the future, it influences our buying now. We do this all the time with gas, right? You hear, oh, the price of gas is going to go up by the end of the week. Everybody rushes to the gas station to get gas now. Or if you hear, the price of gas is going to go down at the end of the week, everybody stays away and says, I'm going to see if I can get, I'm going to stretch my gas tank as far as I can go and see if I can, make it the rest of the week and get gas when it's cheaper. Okay? Those are our determinants. All right. Now, one last thing. Let's just draw a real quick sketch of a demand curve. So you know what a demand curve always looks like. This curve slopes down to the right. Label that with a D for demand. We've got price, and we've got quantity. And let's say that we're selling our good for 50 cents. And at 50 cents, we're willing to buy 3 bags of Doritos. Okay? If any of these determinants change, that cause us to want to, let's say our income goes up. Okay? Got more money. We're buying a normal good. Then what we're going to do is we're going to shift our whole curve to the right. That's an arrow. Let's try those again. There we go. And I'm just going to draw a new demand curve. Label that D1 now. And that shows me that now at 50 cents, I'm willing to buy more bags of Doritos than what it was before because of the increase in income. Okay? So an increase equals shift right. A decrease equals a shift left. And just remember, good rule to live by in graphing in economics, left is always less. Left is always less. You hear me say that a lot in here. So there we go. Those are our determinants. And that's how you would graph a change in demand, either by shifting the whole curve right or the whole curve to the left. Okay?